Nicer Tuesdays, how are we doing? I said nicer Tuesdays, how are we doing? That's better. Bit of energy before we start talking about graphic design and racism. All right, my name is Greg Bunbury. I'm a graphic designer, a consultant, a lecturer. That means I talk a lot about design. I think a lot about design. But today, I want to talk about words. I want to talk about words that hurt, words that divide, words that connect, and words that heal. And I want to talk about what happens when we go beyond those words. But before I do that, we have to go back in time to 2014. So, there I am. I'm in my flat in North London, just 2 miles from here. Saturday morning, I'm sat in the front room. My partner and my daughter are in the next room. I hear a commotion. Someone's shouting. There's yelling coming from the back of the flat. So I go out onto my balcony, and I see this gentleman. You might not be able to tell, but there's a guy who's stood on the balcony looking directly at me. As I turn and see this gentleman, without a word of provocation, he unleashes a 10-minute torrent of racial abuse directed at me. And it's bad. It's ugly and it's loud. Everybody comes out. My partner comes out and she starts filming the altercation. We have videos of this. I won't play it for you because it will 100% ruin your evening. But here's a transcript of some of the words I heard that morning. Because of the threats that were made against me and my family, we had to get the police involved. The man was arrested, prosecuted, no longer lives there. But still, this was shocking. In North London, cosmopolitan North London, on a Saturday morning. And it was a painful reminder that racism was still very much alive. But in 2014, we didn't really need that much of a reminder because, of course, this is the year that Eric Garner was killed. For those of you who don't remember, Eric Garner was an unarmed man who was selling cigarettes outside of a store in New York City, and he was detained by a police officer, put in a fatal chokehold, and said the words, "I can't breathe," 11 times before he died. Needless to say, these experiences really affected me in 2014. Now, I've experienced racism before. I've experienced police harassment. I've experienced racism in my career as a graphic designer, even at university. But now, these experiences are right on my doorstep and across all news channels. Later that year, a grand jury refused to indict the officer that killed Garner, and this led to a wave of protests across the US. The evening the news broke here in the UK, I decided that I need to do something. You see, back then, I was just a freelance graphic designer, but it wasn't much of me in my work. And that's fine, you might say. It's appropriate for clients and employers. It's about them. It's not about me. But when there's a disconnect between the work we do and the values that we extol, it creates a sort of dissonance. So I decided to create something to try and reconcile that dissonance. I created this poster in tribute. It features the words, "I can't breathe," 11 times, with the last line fading out. I found typography to be the most appropriate, direct, and honest medium to express what I was feeling. And I was inspired by the work of Barbara Kruger, Jenny Holzer, and Virgil Abloh. In this sense, the medium was very much the message. So I uploaded my poster to Tumblr, and it got a whopping 2 likes. Absolutely no one paid any attention to this, but some people did. One of the people that did was actually somebody who was connected to the Garner family in New York, and he reached out to me with words of appreciation and acknowledgement, and that was all I needed to know that perhaps there was a path with design that didn't involve just a commercial focus. Someone else who saw the artwork was a good friend of mine who's here tonight. I can't see him because the lights are on me, but Dominic, I think you're over there somewhere. He runs, this handsome chap, for those of you who can see him, runs an outdoor agency called Brotherhood Media. They have a network of billboards across the UK. So Dom had seen my Eric Garner poster, and from that, we started discussing the idea of using billboards to bring attention to social issues, to platform socially focused design. Not for clients and not for an employer, and certainly not for money, but to create dialogue and inspire action. So we started working together. And I started producing designs like these billboards we used to commemorate the 1-year anniversary of the Grenfell fire. Then fast forward to 2020 and George Floyd. As such, many brands and organizations felt compelled to stand with the black community on this issue. This was the rise of Black Lives Matter, after all. Of course, this created an opportunity for dialogue and introspection, to examine the cognitive bias and structural racism that underpins many of our experiences here in the UK. My friend reached out and he asked whether he could reprint this poster on one of his billboards. And initially, I was reluctant. I wasn't entirely comfortable with the idea, and this led to more words. A really frank, long, and difficult discussion. And though it was hard, I felt like we got to a really positive place by the end of it. So that night, I went home and I designed a new poster to connect both Eric Garner and George Floyd, as reportedly, "I can't breathe" were Floyd's last words. My good friend put this artwork up across billboards, I think 4 or 5 across London, and it was seismic. Everything changed after that. I woke up the next day to phone calls and emails and interview requests. It was huge, but what really meant the world to me was that I felt different about my work. Suddenly, there was me in my work. The media agency invited me to do more billboards along this theme, but I felt like if it was only me, then it would only be about my perspective. And my words cannot speak for everyone. Black culture is not monolithic. I also wanted this opportunity to focus on our lived experiences here in the UK. So instead, I invited other Black and POC designers, illustrators, and artists to tell their story, to use their words. Designers like Janavi Innes, Bakani, Nadina Ali, and Harkaran Khalsi, to name a few. Over the next 3 years, we put up dozens and dozens of billboards across London, Leeds, and Bristol. And each billboard represents a different perspective, a unique perspective. Some were hopeful, some were optimistic, some were scathing, some were political, some were angry, some were joyful. But they were all unique. It's not to say that this was an easy project. It was incredibly challenging at times. But the thing that really made it wasn't the billboards, it wasn't the artwork, it was the connections, it was the conversations, it was the dialogue, it was the community. So from here, I began thinking, what else can I do as a designer that not only celebrates diversity and marginalized communities, but what can I do as a designer that helps others to express their words? This is an image of the HMS Windrush. It docked in Tilbury in 1948, bringing Caribbean workers from Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, and other islands to fill post-war UK labor shortages. This image is synonymous with the Windrush generation. And as a descendant of Windrush, I took inspiration from the iconic lettering on the front of that ship and created a typeface based on it, Empire Windrush. It was my intention for this typeface to become more than just a creative resource. It's a tool that represents dialogue, connection, and celebration. When I made the typeface publicly available, I also got to see how other creatives used it to connect with community and express their own words. Amazing artists and designers and creatives like Caroline Hill and her amazing agency Chill Create. Caroline is in the building. I think she's somewhere up there. Again, I can't see you because the light's on me, but shout out. She used Empire Windrush as part of her work on Unsung Heroes, an exhibition in North Kensington which celebrates the lives and experiences of the Windrush community in honor of their legacy. In the summer of 2022, the National Windrush Monument, which is a permanent tribute to the Windrush generation, was unveiled in Waterloo Station, created by the Jamaican sculptor Basil Watson. Abby Wright had been retained to work on the launch materials and the plaque that accompanies the statue, and she selected my typeface, Empire Windrush, to be part of this permanent monument. So if you're in Waterloo, please stop by. It's an incredible honor to see my work just play any part of this. From there, I created more typefaces like Bradford 81, which is an all-caps display typeface inspired by anti-racist Asian youth movements in Bradford, England in the 1970s and 1980s. Today, black outdoor art has been added to the Young V&A in the Designing for Change section on the first floor. If you're in the Young V&A, please go and check it out. That original artwork has been retained by the main V&A and now been added to their permanent collection. Shout out to the V&A, I don't think they're here, but just in case. And from there, I was able to work with different organizations and companies, and my work looks so different today because these are companies that are invested in marginalized communities or anti-racism or sustainability or real issues that affect us all. Most recently, Black Outdoor Art was part of a Hackney Arts Activism Festival dedicated to the legacy of a community organization who fought for victims of police injustice in the 80s and 90s, right here in Hackney. The Hackney Community Defence Association stood right here in Stoke Newington. I grew up like 5 minutes from here, so being a part of this was incredibly meaningful. As part of this festival, I contributed billboard art and also a digital display which addressed police brutality and community solidarity. This work has also given me the opportunity to lecture at universities across the country, encouraging students and young designers to bring advocacy into their work, to make work that matters, work that impacts lives. And all of this from a graphic I uploaded to Tumblr 10 years ago. Now, this is not about being politically correct or virtue signaling. It's not about being an activist or a political artist. This is just about aligning our values with our work in the service of others. This is about doing our best work, allowing others to be heard, allowing their words to be voiced. The words that hurt, words that divide, words that connect, and words that heal. And with that, I say thank you.